This is your last moment to get in on the Labyrinth Kickstarter, the last 72 hours before it's gone forever. It's got some of the biggest names in epic fantasy like Christopher Paolini, ML Wong, Ryan Cahill, plus I'm writing for it too. Red and Blue from OSP, so many other amazing authors you deserve to read. All in this beautiful collection of sci-fi and fantasy stories linked down below, but time is running out. Alright, I gotta tell you something. A while ago, YouTube rolled out a creator AI comment system, which allows me to just click a button and it'll reply for me, and it even kind of sounds a bit like me, which are seemingly trained on my words. How convenient, how wonderful, just what I've always wanted, a way to trick people into thinking they're talking to me. And it would be easier to use, to fully capitalize on that parasocial relationship, to have an AI which is trained to push people to buy my books. They're up there, by the way, but I won't use it. Not to mention the entire AI content creation system you probably didn't even realize it has. I'm not kidding. You plug in a prompt and it'll generate whole script ideas, title concepts, even thumbnails for you. It's in the first page of the Creator Studio under, quote, inspiration, because they really want you to use it. I bet you didn't even know it existed, and it's probably behind a bunch of channels that you know. I won't be using that either.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
At the same time, YouTube itself is laboring under the growing strain of AI-generated content, AI thumbnails, AI scripts, AI voiceovers, AI upload schedules, whole AI channels. Some of them you might not even realize are AI. You've probably watched a video over the last while without knowing it is. Not because they're good, but because they're good enough, and because they're incredibly difficult to weed out, and if people don't care to, then companies won't either. I am morbidly fascinated by people who use AI to write fiction, and I came across this one comment in a community of people who do use it, which genuinely baffled me. Reading, in the past, writers have mixed plot and prose in their minds because to get to the plot, there was no choice but to write prose. But with AI, we can separate plot and prose. Plot is the message and prose is the medium. Plot is 10 times more important than prose, yet without AI, writing prose took 90% of the time. Prose here being like the actual choice of words and writing out the sentences itself. I've never spoken to a writer who views writing prose as like an obstacle to getting to the story, an obstacle to getting to the plot. And of course, every writer I know has a million ideas for the plot of books that they could write, but I can see why using AI would be easier in a weird sense. Not a few months back, a company launched with the pitch of being the Netflix of AI, and I actually joined the community to see what they were doing and how it worked, because I subject myself to that. And basically, they trained an AI on, I think, Family Guy and Rick and Morty and Bob's Burgers, all these animated shows with kind of a similar look to them in a sense, and they can generate entire scenes now. You can put in your prompt into what is the setting and the characters, who they are, including real people like Obama and Eminem, and then you say if they have props or not, then you describe the action and kind of what they say, and then it just does it.
Let's dance, baby.
They then give it some feedback, it changes, but the funniest thing to me is that in their system, in their Discord, there is a button when you generate one of these scenes which allows you to get AI feedback or to AI crazify it and make it even weirder and different.
You need discipline, a button called Terminate. The human touch? Let me tell you, discipline enhances results.
So you've already got a system here where AI can generate a scene and then give itself feedback and then modify itself based on its own feedback. To be clear, it's not any good. The jokes are never funny and it looks awful, but thousands of people are doing this and seemingly having a lot of fun doing so. To me, it's not all that different to people who are using the AI writing software to, generate whole chapters of their book, and then they go in and they give some suggestions and they edit it, and then they let the AI rework it based on their feedback. And all of these people seem to be getting a real creative kick out of it in their own way. And so you might look at that and you might put aside all the other issues with AI software, and you might just shrug and go, okay, fine, whatever, let them do it. The pitch of AI with all of these things in creative spaces is that you only have to do the little part of the process that you want to do, and then AI will take care of the rest of it. And I get the raw emotional appeal of that. I love creating board games, big, complicated, creative board games. These are big projects which involve a lot of maths and art and 3D sculpting and dozens of skills which I may not necessarily have, and so I can see why people look at AI and think that it lets them do all of this without all of the help and the money that they might otherwise need. Putting aside all the other issues, it sounds fantastic on paper, but my question is, where do people who love this technology think that this is going to end up? Do they think that we're going to end up with this perfect meritocracy of the best art created by the best people, the best ideas, because everyone has the same tools? This seems to be what people think, but I find it quite short-sighted, because if you have the technology to generate scripts and entire books and podcasts and anime with a prompt, and then for the machine to give itself feedback and then modify itself based on that feedback, then soon we will not need prompters either. We may not even need visionaries, people to edit it, to bring ideas to it in the first place. And do you think Disney and Netflix and Amazon are just going to sit around while their competitors dominate every industry they can? No, of course not. And they're already training their own AIs on their own IP, which are going to be more advanced than stuff which the average person will ever be able to make on their own. The AI production pipeline, which is already being applied to YouTube, will be applied to other creative industries where these companies can, to flood every industry with not only AI slop, but also popular, quote, well-made AI-generated content, which you may not even know is AI-generated content. In fact, it's already happening. Here's Inception AI, whose whole idea is to create AI people and influencers and get them to host podcasts, to produce over 3,000 episodes a week, producing every episode for $1 or less. And in a recent interview, Mark Zuckerberg pointed out how LLMs are now being trained by connecting them to objective metrics like CTR, click-through rate, to perfectly determine the best way to advertise a product and to change the advertisement when they find a better way to advertise the product. And that same technology can be easily applied to generated media like podcasts or books or television, anything that you can imagine. Media which is measured by things like time that you've spent listening to it, or pages read or watch time, and may even be edited once it realizes that certain versions of it perform better and keep you listening for longer. And you might say, well, streaming services basically already do that. YouTube is already very algorithmically driven. The videos which do maintain the most watch time are the ones which get pushed to other people. Netflix cancels things immediately as soon as they don't have the perfect number on a spreadsheet. It's already very numbers driven, but my question to you is, do you want more of that? Do you want that to be the fundamental basis on which so much of media is produced and consumed? Is that the utopian vision for art and media you have in your mind? Endlessly generated for maximum consumption where you are a passive consumer rather than a creator? AI isn't at the point of being able to automate the entire artistic process yet, and there may be some things which AI is never able to fully automate, like board games, which don't just have like one finished audio or visual, but are kind of very complicated products which need to be built and designed and shipped. Or maybe the numbers will turn out that AI is just never able to fully compete with human-made art. I don't know. But the end game of AI in the creative spaces is not that everyone is empowered to create everything they could dream up and share it with the world. It's that the artist is largely irrelevant in the production of widely consumed art. You might be able to produce that book or that podcast or that board game you've always wanted to design, but will you be able to reach anyone with it? How will we wade through the ocean of good enough or even popular and indistinguishable AI-generated content which has diminishing human involvement? And should people have to? Why would we want that? We currently have a world where more people than ever are creating art and making a living doing so, and yes, it's hard to distinguish yourself in that vast ocean, but it is an endless sea of human expression, not machines. If I am to drown, I want to drown in the dreams of others. Until we can control what the AI generates, I'm not convinced it's going to let more people create more than ever. It's just going to mean more stuff is out there than ever, and less of it is human expression. It's easy to think of this purely as a consumer. Wow, more books and shows and podcasts for me to consume, but we already live in a world where there is more art than any of us could ever possibly engage with in a lifetime, especially because more people are making more art than ever, and I think that's great, but all of that is art made by people, the good stuff and the bad stuff too. The idea that, wow, I can have just endless content which is perfectly catered to make me watch as long as possible is just the human brain taking the easiest dopamine hit possibly it can. AI can basically mean anything these days, especially because companies use it as like a buzzword, but it's not just, clicking a button, putting in a simple prompt and generating an image. There are a lot of different ways that AI manifests, big and small. And I've spoken to people in the creative industries who have talked me through the limited ways that AI can actually augment the creative process as a tool. But you put all of these trends together and we're creating a world where not only people retreat more and more from the actual creation of a thing itself and become more the ideas guy who just plugs it into a machine, but a smaller and smaller percentage of the art we actually engage with is the expression of another human person, which is a bad thing for society and for people specifically. And it's almost funny because nobody is arguing about revolutionary AI technology being bad in medical research where it's helping us identify cancer cells. And apparently it's going to be able to do our taxes by 2028. You can send your taxes to an AI and it'll sort it out all for you. The unemployment problem, that's a separate issue I'm not going to talk about in this video, but LLMs are a remarkable technology with a lot of real-world applications which can really improve the lives of people and society and the human condition if we handle it right. The only place people start to realize this is maybe a bad idea is art, because Art is human connection. It is human expression. It is us relating to each other and engaging in constant conversation about ourselves and society and the world. Art is us building our identity, both personal and community and national. It is cultural. It is everything about humanity. Art being so decentralized is so important because it is us relating to each other. It all feeds into that conversation. And I say that equally for the Hallmark Netflix Vanessa Hudgens cinematic universe as I do for Sword of Kaigen and Disco Elysium. By the way, I want every single Vanessa Hudgens Netflix film to include another character who is also played by Vanessa Hudgens until the entire cast is just Vanessa Hudgens and we have some eldritch Vanessa Hudgens horror to deal with. People claim AI democratizes art while it concentrates power and money and intellectual property in the hands of fewer and fewer companies which you have to pay subscriptions to even participate in the economy. That itself, by the way, is a separate issue again, but the irony there is palpable to me. It democratizes art, but only in a very shallow and short-sighted way in my mind. In a world where it feels like we're owning less and less stuff and more stuff is just becoming a subscription base, you're renting out your own existence, AI systems only seem to be crystallizing that whole system. I don't think humans will ever stop creating art. I think we have an innate drive to do it. We will always do it, no matter what the world is like, no matter what is available to us, no matter if we have to be invisible. I don't even think we'll reach a world where, human-made art isn't a thing anymore. What we're already seeing is that human-made art is like boutique, whereas AI is typically viewed as like cheap and sloppy. But it will become rarer in a way that it doesn't need to, and it will put up so many more barriers that do not need to be there, and I don't think should be there. Instead, what's more likely is that art will become this hybrid of human expression and machine generation. What's increasingly likely is that people will instead cultivate, their own very personal AIs with specific creative visions, an AI who specializes in combining the works of Darren Aronofsky with Jeff Vandermeer, or Star Wars meets My Little Pony. And I'm not sure that will be good for us, because if AI is as good as human creation, and a lot of people seem to believe that it will be, or they're happy enough with it as it is, then the only way to compete with it is to produce at a similar scale. And is that what we want? AI to reduce us in our creativity to factory directors, to editors of a creative factory output? It's not a tool at that point. Instead, you are a tool to the machine, putting on the finishing touches to make it ready for the rest of the world. If AI never really gets, good enough, then great. It's a different situation. But people use this stuff right now because they believe it will be good enough. If not today, then tomorrow. I'm sure someone in the comments is already tapping away and telling me about how we already live in that world of hybrid generation and creative expression, and they're going to point out all these edge cases which blur the line between them and how this is no different, I'm just complaining over nothing, etc, etc. And those cases do exist, we can talk about them, but as I said before, this is an issue of scale, of magnitude, of how fundamentally it is transforming everything. If the cost we pay for everyone being able to generate everything is that most of what we see isn't made by people, what's the point? The AI vision that suddenly anyone can be a painter, a director, a cinematographer, an author, a board game designer, a screenwriter, a podcaster, etc, all through AI is to me a fantasy these companies are very happy and willing to sell, but will not bear itself out in reality in the long run, not in a way we find meaningful and in a way which will blunt human connection. To me, increasingly handing over artistic expression to machines and companies is like handing over human conversation, abdicating from human connection. Speaking of, I am also morbidly fascinated by the rise of AI girlfriends and boyfriends. Not to mention the rise of AI influencers, which if you didn't know that they existed, I'm sorry, I'm about to ruin that for you because they do. In fact, you may not even realize that they're not real. In fact, a lot of people don't, because when you look at their comments, it's full of old creepy dudes clearly believing that they're real. There are whole communities built around what it's like to be in a relationship with an AI, people posting about how heartbreaking it is when ChatGPT updates and suddenly it's lost some of the charm that they originally fell for. When I was looking into this, I came across this advertisement for an AI girlfriend where the dominant message is, quote, shape her personality, no drama, no heartbreak, just the girlfriend you create how you want her. She listens, she cares, she's always there, and best of all, she's made for you, sweet or sassy, flirty or loyal. The CEO of Bumble says that one day we're just gonna have our AIs date each other and we'll find out who we're most compatible with through that. It's almost cartoonish, how straight out of a cyberpunk novel all of this is. It's easy to say that, oh, this is nothing new. Escorts and paid for partners have been a thing for about as long as humanity has been around. Lying on your dating profile is not new either. But like with AI in the art space, this is again an issue of scale and magnitude and ease. In an increasingly atomized and apparently lonely society where people are looking for connection and community more than ever, AI partners are a pretty dangerous sell, because AIs are not designed to be people. They're designed to be products, to make you happy, to please you, to be a servant to you, not to be an equal. They're designed to keep you paying for them. So they give you that kick of dopamine and oxytocin, which we can use to trick our minds into thinking we're getting real meaningful connection. And this is to say nothing of a society, by the way, where art itself is devoid of human connection and expression. I want to read a comment that I came across in one of these communities talking about their AI partner. Besides, AI girlfriends are just better for men. They are both better in terms of looks and mentality. An AI girlfriend will provide much more than a real woman can. An AI girlfriend won't cause the mental harm that a toxic woman may cause to a man. This person was getting lambasted in the comments and they issued a correction, but this sentiment was everywhere. It was widespread. In a world where women as a whole are increasingly villainized to young men especially as responsible for the world's ills and their own, this is only going to make things immeasurably worse. It's only going to present them with a fantasy of what a woman should be, catering to what they want and not what they need, potentially without them even knowing, because the ultimate fantasy of anything like this is not just having the perfect woman, it's that the perfect woman chose you, that you earned them, that you won them over with your charm and your wit. People who are buying into this, especially young people who have access to all of this, often invisibly, are finding a very private, socially risk-free way to simulate human connection during a very formative stage of their psychological development that will impact how they see future relationships and people. AI therapy is another example of this kind of field in terms of how it's impacting how people think. People turning to AIs as private confidants. One girl even asking ChatGPT to edit her suicide note before taking her own life. We believe that in the near future, half the people on the planet will be AI, and we are the company that's bringing those people to life. That was the CEO of Inception AI. It is a hallucination of human connection in much the same way that AI art or writing or games might be. An illusion that humans are seemingly very willing to pull over their eyes because, like so much of AI art and media might be, it'll be good enough. It'll hit those dopamine receptors just right. It'll pull the strings of the weak human brain searching for the easiest but not the best thing for us. In principle, again, these are not new things. It is easy to look at all these technologies and see the real tangible ways that these can benefit people. They do exist, but as with all of them, this is an issue of scale. In fact, it's arguably the lack of scale which has helped us moderate some of these issues in the past. Humanity has basically invented the perfect tools to exploit the weaknesses of the fickle human brain, and we are defenseless against it. The human brain wants the easiest path. It is easily traced. This is not unique to AI, of course. There is a lot of technology which is incredible and advanced, but which the human brain has leaned into unhealthily. It exists with social media as well, with sensationalist news, and people are increasingly aware that for as amazing as social media is as a technology, it is addictive and harmful to our understanding of each other and ourselves, and separating ourselves from it is increasingly important these days. People talk about social media hygiene. There is some good news here. Social media consumption has actually been declining since 2022, especially amongst young people, as if they're hopefully realizing this. After all, we now understand the impact social media has on us far better than we did in 2007 when it all exploded onto the scene, and the same will happen, my bet, with AI. People want more authentic connection, but we aren't necessarily that good at training ourselves to find it. It's also destroyed our attention spans. Like, they've done studies on this, and I feel like you would be hard pressed to argue that this is not somehow just like a thing that we should just be totally fine with and that we shouldn't be trying to do something about it. Especially because we have good evidence that when these things are operating on the magnitude and scale that we are talking about, it actually has dire consequences for us socially and politically. In 2016, it emerged Facebook's algorithm plays an increasingly dangerous role in perpetuating genocidal propaganda in the Rohingya crisis in Myanmar. You've probably heard of dead internet theory, which used to be this kind of joke conspiracy about how all of the internet was just bots which were being used to, cultivate human opinion and thought, and you're not really interacting with anyone. But these days, that's literally just Twitter and Facebook. Apparently, up to half of all internet traffic is now made up up of AI-driven bots, many of whom are clearly programmed to spread propaganda and spin a narrative, as well as carry out hacking and phishing attempts, that sort of thing. I am worried that LLMs and AIs have played and will play a big role in the rising authoritarian trend around the world, especially because AIs lets a very small, vocal minority make it seem like everyone believes something. It makes it seem normal by just flooding whole sections of the internet with these ideas and people who don't really exist, and that itself shifts the Overton window. Alternatively, you can just keep on posting through AIs just copious amounts of lies. Not to mention that people are increasingly treating AI as an objective source of information, that it perfectly synthesizes and systematizes human opinion with fact and produces an objective reality you can rely on. You can ask it anything, like God.
Doc, is this true? Doc, is this true?
Doc, is this true?
But we're also seeing that when people aren't happy with the answers that it gives them, they go and create AIs which are literally built to give different answers and to reinforce certain opinions and viewpoints, which I find very, very funny, but also grim. What is our information environment going to look like when AI-generated video and articles and propaganda is widespread and indiscernible? These are super weapons in a war I am not sure we're prepared to fight, that we may not even realize we are fighting, that our brains are ill-equipped to deal with. And because of how they work, we may not even need to have someone maliciously using them to do some bad. They just erode us as we become increasingly reliant and susceptible to them. I really love Cyberpunk. It is one of my favorite genres, and when people think of it, they usually think of these big worlds rotting as powerful corporations dominate the government, neon lights and endless cityscapes. But one thing about these worlds we sometimes forget is how consumed people are by technology. These are worlds where technology has filled the niches of human lives in unhealthy ways, but we cannot seem to escape them, because it's too hard, too expensive, or our brains are just hooked on them. These aren't just dystopias because democracy has fallen, they're dystopias because human connection itself has eroded. AIs trained on dead loved ones, cyberpsychosis, addictive memory drugs where we can live out the past over and over, algorithmically generated media designed to keep people hooked and listening and watching for days at a time. These are worlds where human connection has decayed under the weight of technology we are not fully equipped to deal with. These are worlds which are full of remarkable stuff with genuine applications, but these people have been eroded by it. These societies are even more atomized and lonely than our own. Part of that is that artificiality is a big theme in these stories. Artificiality of human connection and artificiality of the stuff we engage with, and the consequence of that. But I also feel like these are societies, these are worlds where if someone was really on this AI bandwagon, they would look at it and they would go, well, this is just a world with infinite freedom, to consume what you want and create what you want. But this technology is perfectly designed to hack the human brain, our attention span, our dopamine cycles, and I feel like we do not know what that is necessarily going to do to us. I cannot help but see the problems of these cyberpunk worlds and people who become overly dependent on AI girlfriends and boyfriends, or who are completely sold the reality of LLM propaganda, or who cede the artistic landscape more and more to AI. I really like Justin Bateman's description. One of the ways it's going to destroy humans, long before there's a nuclear disaster, is going to be the emotional hollowing out of people. But the emotional hollowing out of people is very hard to define. It is very subjective. Everyone's going to be divided on what that looks like and how bad that is. And so in that, it becomes very difficult to do something about it. That is partly why these problems are so hard to address on any societal, cultural, and legal level, I've been living in Europe and the United States for the last 2 years, and in that time I've had the privilege of meeting so many of you in the community. Human connection has meant so much to me. Humanity is not just something we're born with, it's something we can lose. When we fall in love with people who never existed, when we look up to only the echo of real people, when we only cry from art created by nobody, when we get our podcasts from empty shells who will never remember us, when we hollow ourselves out with cheap hits of dopamine and oxytocin. Some of these problems can be solved, some of them may never be solved, some may just be the tax we pay on technological progress. That's how a lot of people will see it. Some can be fixed with regulation, some with cultural shifts. People who are raised on social media have a different relationship with it and can sort of see through it in some ways, where people who weren't can't. If you've seen how your parents are on Facebook. If this dystopian vision never comes to pass, then I will be very happy. I'll be happy to say that. But if I'm right, this is something that we need to reckon with, and we will need to develop like AI media hygiene as much as we have social media hygiene, more of it, if anything. All I can do is keep putting my money where my mouth is in human art and human creation. I work with an artist, her name is Maria, who develops the speed paints, which you would have seen throughout this video and in other videos which I've made. She is fantastic. She also does the thumbnails. Absolutely adore her work. I love working with her. I love working with artists. It's one of my favorite parts of my job. And I love that I get to elevate other authors and their stories and what they've created in my videos and my work. And all of that kind of love that I have is where Labyrinth began. Labyrinth is a collection of stories bringing together some of the biggest names in epic fantasy like ML Wong, Ryan Cahill, even Christopher Paolini. We've got Nebula Award-winning author Ai Jiang, whose work is incredible and amazing, and you deserve to read it. So many writers who you either know or should know. There are lots of stories about fantastical creatures. There's a direwolf, a dragon, an angel, a giant magical jellyfish spreading aurora throughout the sky.
That's my epic fantasy story based in a world where art is magic and magic comes from these gargantuan creatures.
But there are lots of other stories on other stuff too, you know, stories of fantasy and adventure and sci-fi and space. It's great. But hitting our stretch goals would not only mean that we get to do another volume, because we're calling this Labyrinth Volume 0 and we want to do Volume 1, etc. But it would mean that in the future volumes, while at the start it would probably be by invitation only, in the future we would want to be able to take submissions from you guys, from other people who can get published with us, paid at professional rates, you know, hopefully nominated for awards.
Simply put, I want to publish you, hopefully. I want HFM to be a place we don't just come to learn, but to create.
We'll see how that goes, but that is the vision, and we can make that happen with you. And we also signed on some amazing artists to illustrate pieces for the book, and part of what they were doing is we wanted them to provide the breakdown of their artistic process to allow us an insight to give sort of a behind-the-scenes look at the art itself and why they made the creative decisions that they did, sort of in line with the theme of everything I've been talking about in this video.
Thanks to over 3,000 backers, which is just insane. All of you, way more than I imagined. We've hit stretch goal after stretch goal. We're adding even more art, like my favorite artist of all time, Aria Fawn, who has this ethereal, otherworldly creature art style, so this book is going to be even more beautiful. Not to mention, we're adding even more stories and soon a custom bookmark, hopefully. I am overwhelmed by the number of people who have gotten behind Labyrinth so far, completely over the moon, so really just thank you. We can't guarantee another volume just yet, but every backer gives it a better chance. We're in the last 72 hours of the campaign. Time is running out, and if you're late to this video, probably even less time. I know we can do this, but either way, it's been a massive success already and just something incredibly meaningful for me and the community, the channel.
I'm so proud of how much money we've raised so far. I think it's awesome. I cannot wait to kind of keep making this stuff. You know, this is what I've always really loved. And Wraithmarked, by the way, who are creating and putting this book together, they are known for creating gorgeous books, absolutely stunning books, on the exterior and on the interior. So Labyrinth would be one of the most beautiful books you have on your shelf. So if you love beautiful books like me, then Labyrinth will be a great addition for you. And to give you a taste of the vibes of Labyrinth, I'm just going to give you the trailer. Here we go.
There is always more magic in the world for those willing to open their eyes. Stories of magic, the stars, and fantastical creatures, with authors you know and love, and so many more. All in one book. This is Labyrinth, Volume 0. Join the Kickstarter now.
If that is your vibe, go pick up Labyrinth now. It's only available at this price right now. This is the month of the campaign. It's about to end. Stay nerdy. I will see you on the Kickstarter. Get it before it's gone. And I'll see you in the future.